And in today class, I'm going to explain a new concept that is intermediate code generation, and which is the fourth phase in our process of compilation. And this intermediate code generation is an fourth phase as per in the process of compilation. We all know what the first phase of the compilers is: lexical analysis, and then the syntax analyzers, and then the semantic analyzers, and the fourth phase, that is an intermediate code generator. And here, initially, to know what the intermediate code generation, first you need to know what the introduction of this phase is. And here the task of the compiler is to convert the source program into machine program. That means this activity can be done directly, but it is not always possible to generate such a machine code directly in an one pass. So then typically the compilers generate an easy to represent form of source language, and which we are calling that source language is an intermediate language. That means the generation of an intermediate language leads to an efficient code generation. Whatever the object code that I am generating by implementing the code generation, that code should be an efficient code. It's the main goal of the compilers to generate whatever the code that we are generating by implementing with an code generation, that code should be in an efficient manner, right? So if that is an advantage here to generate or to this when we are generating an intermediate languages by implementing with an intermediate code generations, and it always leads to an efficient code generation. So we are using an intermediate languages, when we are implementing the intermediate code generations. And here what are the concepts under this intermediate code generation is: the first concept is about a syntax tree, and there itself we are going to learn about what the DAG representation, that is then direct acyclic graph. And this construction of the syntax tree already explained in the last classes in the concept of construction of an abstract syntax tree, and how to construct the abstract syntax tree, and how to represent a tree structure, and how to write the semantic actions corresponding to the production rules. All these things I explained in the last class about this syntax tree, that also can be called as an abstract syntax tree. And the next one is a three address code, and the next one is an types and declarations, and then the translation of the expressions and type checking. This concept was already explained in the last class at the semantic analysis. And the next one is about the control flow, and finally backpatching. And these are the concepts under the intermediate code generation, and one by one we're going to learn and we'll understand how the implementation or how the internal functionality of the each and every concept takes place in intermediate code generation, right? And the first concept is about a syntax tree. Before knowing about how to represent a syntax tree and how to represent a DAG, first initially we need to know the role of the intermediate code generator. That means intermediate language. Here we are implementing the intermediate language, right? So why? Because for typical compilers it is easy to represent the form of the source language, and that form we are calling it as an intermediate language. And this is the role of the intermediate code generator. And while talking about the lexical analyzers, there I explained about the role of the lexical analyzers. While talking about the syntax analyzers, there I explained about the role of the parsers. And the semantic analyzer is the continuation part of the syntax analyzer, right? So there what we are performing means just we are performing the static checkers, and then finally we are generating an output. And here we need to know what the role of the intermediate code generator, because this is the fourth phase in the compilation process. And here I'm explaining the brief most important steps that are involved in the role of the intermediate code generator. And see here, first initially defining with an intermediate code generator is with it is an fourth phase of the compilers. And here this intermediate code is the interface between the front end and the back end in a compiler. And what the front ends and what the back ends means, as we already learned in the first unit, that is about analysis parts of the compilers. We are having two parts there: analysis part and the synthesis part, right? The analysis part comes under the machine independent code, where it is in front end of the compilers. And the synthesis part comes under the machine dependent code, where it is an backend of the compilers, right? So this intermediate code is acting as a mediator between terminology means this is an interface between the front end and the back end in an compilers. And here the details of the source language, because here we are implementing or we are generating an intermediate languages, right? So the details of the source language are confined to the front end and the details of the target language are confined to the back end. Make a note of this. And here we are implementing this with an M into N model, and we are implementing the intermediate code generation in an M into N model. And here we are going to discuss about the representations and about the static type checkings on and the intermediate languages and the three address codes, what the backpatching is, what the control flow statements are, and all those we are learning here, right? Because those are all under the concepts of the intermediate code generation. Once all of you see the structure, initially starting with an parser, and then the output of the parser is acting as an input to the static checker, and there we generated and decorated syntax tree, and that output is acting as an input to the intermediate code generator, and then it goes to the code generation. That means here in this concept and in this unit we are only generating an intermediate code languages. Only we are generating an intermediate code languages, that is an intermediate languages, just by implementing with an intermediate code generators. And here we're having some of the benefits of intermediate code generations, and there are certain benefits of generating the machine independent intermediate codes. In those, what are the most important three benefits are: the first one, the first benefit is when I want to create a compilers, when I want to create and compilers for different machines, creating and compilers for different machines. And how I can create and compilers for different machines? Just by attaching and different backends to the existing front end of each machine. Then I can create and compilers for the different machines. That's one of the benefit that can be implemented by using this intermediate code generators. And what the second benefit is, vice versa of the first benefit. What it means, there were creating and different machines, but here for the different source languages. That means a compiler for different source languages. Only for one machine, only for the same machine I'm talking here. Only for the same machine, how I'm creating the compilers means just by attaching different front ends for corresponding source language to the existing backend. Right, these are the two most important benefits when we are generating the intermediate language. Just by implementing this, just by implementing the three address code, or implementing with an abstract syntax tree, or implementing with an DAG, or implementing with any type of a polish notation like that. By implementing all such concepts under the intermediate code generation, and these are the two most important benefits that we are having here. And what the third one is, third benefit is, this is a machine independent code, right? Because here I am talking the benefits about the machine independent intermediate code. And here a machine independent code optimizer can be applied to intermediate code in order to optimize the code generation. And that means according to the intermediate code generator, here itself we are doing an optimization. Here itself we are applying the optimization. What it means is, whatever the output that we are generating from the intermediate code generation, that means by performing an intermediate code generation, whatever the intermediate language that we are generating, and that should be in an optimized manner. That means the name itself we are calling it is a machine independent code optimizer. It is a machine independent code optimizer. What it means is, it can be applied in intermediate code in order to optimize the code generations, right? And these are the most important benefits. And the role of the parser is initially taking the input from the lexical analyzers. Here we are, by implementing the parsing techniques, or by constructing the parsing techniques at the parser, we are generating the parse tree. And that parse tree is acting as an input to the static checkers, where static checker is nothing but an semantic analyzers. There we're performing the type checkings. So after performing the type checkings, or type conversions, or type equivalence, or type systems, and so on, then finally the output that we are generating is in the form of a decorated parse tree, and that is acting as an input to the intermediate code generator. And by taking the tree structure as an input, and now we are generating an intermediate language for this tree, the corresponding tree. For the corresponding tree, we are generating an intermediate language just by implementing an intermediate code generator, right? And the here what I am generating an output in the form of an intermediate language. What an intermediate language consisting of, right? So which in which format it is in? Is there any representation of this intermediate language? Yes, there are. I will explain in the further slides. Then finally, the output of this intermediate code generation is acting as an input to the code generator. In between, we're having another phase. What that phase is? Code optimization, right? And from the code optimization onwards, it comes under the backend, and from the lexical parser and static checker up to there, it is an front end, right? What this intermediate is acting as an mediator between this front end and the back end. That's the introduction, and that's the role of the intermediate code generator, by knowing the most important three benefits of code generators, right? And here we're having a concept of the first concept under the intermediate code generation. After knowing the introduction of what the intermediate code generation is and what is an intermediate language, most important thing, what is an intermediate language and why we are using these intermediate languages. For typical compilers, for generating the typical compilers, we need an easy way of representation. So we are choosing a form of representations. In that choosing, we're having a form of source language that we are calling it as an intermediate language, right? Make a note. And here I know what the definition of intermediate language is. I know why the need of these intermediate languages in the compilation process, right? And then knowing about what the syntax tree is, it was already known to you all, I think, because this concept was already explained at syntax directed translation schemas, where means there are two ways of representing an semantic actions. One is a syntax directed definition, and the second one is an syntax directed translation scheme, right? And after learning the syntax directed translation scheme, there I explained, sorry, before learning an syntax directed translation scheme, there I explained how to draw the syntax trees, how to construct the syntax trees, with the syntax directed definitions, right? That means there itself I explained the difference between the representations of the parse tree and the syntax tree. And a small difference is, in the parse tree, the nodes, that is an non-terminals, are acting as an internal nodes, or it may be a root node, but always the leaves should be, and the external nodes should be an terminals, right? While coming to here, the representation of a syntax tree, the syntax tree representation is between the operands and the operators. That means for the expression, for any type of an algebraic expression, we are representing these syntax trees, right? So that means for the input strings, we are representing a syntax trees, where the input strings consisting of the both operators and the operands. So these operators are the internal nodes or the root nodes, and the operands are the external nodes. When we are comparing the representations of the parse tree and the syntax tree, these are the main comparisons between those two, right? And here I am directly explaining the syntax tree along with an DAG. That means from the given expression, first initially I need to draw the syntax tree, and then I need to find out where there are any common sub expressions in the uh, represented syntax tree. Then after finding out, then I use it to draw the DAG representation. But here I know how to represent an syntax trees. That's why I am directly representing an DAG here. For the given expression, I am directly showing the DAG representation in this slide. Once all of you see this. Again, I'm repeating what the abstract syntax tree is, or syntax tree or abstract syntax tree, whatever it may be. It is a natural hierarchical structure and represented by the syntax tree. That means here the DAG is very much similar to the syntax trees, but they are in more compact form. What those means? Here in syntax tree, we are not using any loops. Syntax tree does not consisting of an loops, but in DAG we are using the loops. That's we are having the name. It is directed acyclic graph. And now you all should know what the meaning of the DAG is. What is an DAG? DAG for the expression. DAG is nothing but an directed acyclic graph, and it is usually referred as an DAG. Is a directed graph. Is an directed graph drawn by identifying the common sub-expressions. Just like in syntax tree, DAG has nodes representing the sub-expressions in the expression, but these nodes have the operators and operand 1 and operand 2, where the operands are the child nodes of the where the operands are the children of that node. So the difference between the DAG and syntax tree is that common sub-expressions has more than one parent, and in syntax tree the common sub-expression would be represented duplicated subtree. I think you all understand what I explained up to now. Here I represent a loop. See here. Here there is a loop representation is there. But when I am representing directly in a syntax tree representation, my syntax tree does not consisting of any loops, right? The syntax tree does not consisting of any loops. Here the only difference is common sub-expressions. When you find out the common sub-expression in the given expression, then you can form the DAG, right? Then you can form the DAG. Otherwise it should be a syntax tree. See here, once all of you note this example, the example is a plus a into b minus c plus b minus c into d. B minus c into d, right? What the common sub-expression in the given expression? Here I'm having b minus c, and here also I'm having b minus c, right? What it mean is, it is a common sub-expression. When I have to call this, it is a DAG. When it is named it as a DAG, when the common sub-expressions have more than one parent, then it can be called it as an DAG. And while coming to the syntax tree, if the syntax tree, to represent a syntax tree also, if we have such a common sub-expression in the given expression, it would be represented as a duplicate subtree. It should be a duplicate subtree, but there itself we are not forming any loops. But here when we are representing it in a DAG, we are forming the loops, right? See here, a plus a. Here also we are having two a's. That means a plus a. In the expression, we are having the common sub-expressions are a is a common sub-expression, b minus c is a common sub-expression. See, in overall representation, we just represent b minus c at one time and a at one time, right? But for the syntax tree, we need to represent and duplicate subtree. That means again we are representing for the b minus t, and again we are representing for the a without using like an loops, without using like this loops. Make a note of this. What it mean here? A plus a into, this is a plus, right? Here I am forming the loop. A plus a into b minus c, right? B minus C. Again, here we are having another loop with B minus C2 plus. What it means is, here the half of the expression is constructed. Here the half of the expression is constructed. And in the given expression, what the half of the expression is, A plus A into B minus C is half part. B minus C into D is an half part, right? In between we are having an operator where this operator is in root node of this expression. Make a note of this. This plus is in root node of this expression. Now I constructed for the left hand side of the plus, and now I am constructing for right hand side of the plus. What it mean? This B minus C was already constructed. So directly I am taking, I am representing star and D like this. That means here this is a root node, and this is a left hand side part, and this is a right hand side part. What it mean is, A is having a loop, and B minus C is also having a loop. B minus C is also having a loop. That's why we are calling this as a DAG representation. We are naming it this as a DAG representation. For the given expression, plus is the root node in the expression, and the common sub-expressions are A and B minus C are the common sub-expressions from the given expression. So this is the way of representing a DAG with the loops. But I am encouraging an duplicate subtrees. That means as I know how to draw the syntax trees, the operators are the internals and the root node, and the operands A, B, C, all these are the operands. These are the external nodes, right? That means if I encourage the duplicate subtrees, here I am not calling as a sub-expression, subtrees. In overall tree representation, the part, if I consider some part in the tree representation, means that can be called it as a subtree from the subtree which yields from the given tree. That means which yields from the represented tree. The meaning of that subtree is that if I encourage the representations of the subtrees, that means for the duplicates also, if I draw the tree structure without forming like an loops like this, that means without uh, putting in cycles like this, then that can be called it as a syntax tree. It's most important concept. One is the abstract syntax tree, and that also can be called as a syntax tree, and another one is a DAG. These are the two most important concepts under the intermediate code generation. And if you know how to construct the syntax tree, and it is very easy to construct the DAGs, right? For the same expression here, for the same expression A plus A into B minus C plus B minus C into D, for the same expression, see here, I am creating an DAX. That means creating an DAX for the based on the syntax directed definitions. What it means is, from the given grammar, first I need to write whatever the productions that are in the given grammar, and now I am writing the semantic actions or semantic rules corresponding to each and every production from the given grammar, right? And here the concept is about a syntax trees, so we need to use the basic functions of writing and semantic actions for the syntax tree. What those functions means, when I'm writing for the node, I need to use a node function. When I'm writing for the identifier, I need to use an identifier function. That is, an identifier is a leaf, right? So make leaf I am using. When I am writing for the number, any number constants, I need to use a function, or I need to create a function for the num. So by using the functions of the syntax tree, by using the functions of representing or writing the semantic actions for the that is semantic actions for the syntax tree, here I am creating and functions for each and every node. I am creating and functions for each and every node based on the right hand side of the production rule. Take a note of this. This I already explained in the last class at the concept of syntax directed translation. Again, I am repeating here. See here, I need to talk about an E. Why? Because E is a node. If I compute the values of E1 and T, then the value is assigned to a node E, right? So what it means is, here I am writing a semantic action for this. And all these are the nodes, right? All these are the nodes. That's why the attribute I defined here is with an node, dot node, dot node, dot node. And it should be a make leaf. When I'm writing a function for the nodes, it should be a make node or it should be a new node, whatever it may be. No need to worry about new or fk. Make node, new node of, plus it is a label operator, and it is a left pointer and it is a right pointer. So we are writing like this: e1 dot node comma t dot node. And here also same. Here also we are talking about e, right? So I need a value for the e, right? So e is a node. So I am writing an function for the node e make node or new node of, minus is the label pointer and left pointer and the right pointer, and e is equal to t and t is equal to e, whatever it may be. E dot node is equal to t dot node, and here also t is equal to e or e is equal to t, and no need to bother about this open parenthesis and the closed parenthesis. These are the terminals, right? So for the terminals like in parenthesis, we are not having any function with the parenthesis. We are having the function with only for the identifiers and only for the nums and only for the nodes. These are the only three functions that we are using when we are writing an semantic actions for the syntax trees, right? And it is an identifier, right? ID, and here ID is an identifier, so it can leave. Make leave for new leaf of ID comma ID dot entry. T tends to num. Again, num is a leaf node, so num comma num dot val, because in the num we are using an values. We are substituting the values in the nums. So num comma num dot val. These are the semantic rules corresponding to each and every production from the given grammar. Now I am writing the production studies. Productions in the sense, what I am writing here is P1, having an example like, right? What P1, P2, P3, P4 means, these are all the pointers. These are all the pointers from the given expression. From the given expression, based on the semantic rules, finally I'm having P pointers. Finally I'm having P13 pointers. What it means? P13 pointers means I am using 1 to 13 pointers. I am using pointer to pointer 13. And see how I am writing this. P1 is equal to, from the expression, from by using the semantic rules, I need to represent an expression like this: a plus a into b minus c plus b minus c into d, right? I need to generate this expression by using this. I need to generate this expression by using the semantic rules from the productions. So directly I am using the semantic actions, and then I am using the production numbers here, that is, and pointer numbers here. By with the representation of P1, P2, P3, I am generating an expression that is a plus a into b minus c plus b minus c into d. See how to generate this. How to generate this expression once all of you see. P1 is equal to, initially my expression starts with an a, right? A plus a into, right? So P1 is equal to, where a is an identifier, because a is an identifier, right? A is an identifier, right? Because in the place of I, in the place of I, in the place of this ID, that I means an ID, here I'm using a semantic action like this. Make leaf of ID comma ID dot entry. What it means is, in the place of ID dot entry, I am using an variable A. I am using a variable A, right? So A plus, and again P2 is equal to, there are two A's in the expression, that we are having two A's, right? So once see the expression, once you all of you note down this expression: A plus A into B minus C plus B minus C into D. For this expression, we are generating the semantic actions, and based on the semantic actions, we are again we are performing the reverse engineering here. That means what we are doing here is, we need to draw the syntax tree. We need to draw the syntax tree for the expression. First, initially, for the expression, what we need to do is, we need to perform the sequence of operations of the syntax tree. And these are the sequence of operations. Make a note of this. These are the sequence of operations. And from this sequence of operations, I am generating the expression. I am generating an expression. See, P1 is equal to, now initially I am storing with an P1 operation. P1 is a pointer, right? P1 is equal to leaf of. And what the first variable in the expression? A, right? I need to generate an A. So I am using this semantic action. New leaf of, ID comma ID dot entry. Then in the place of ID dot entry, I am using an A, right? And P2, again I'm using another pointer P2. Again, my expression consisting of another A, right? Leaf of ID comma entry A. It was already stored with an pointer P1. Operation, I wrote an operation, but here the same operation I assigned for the pointer P2, but it was already in a pointer P1, right? So just I am assigning, this was an existing pointer P1, because in P1 already it was stored with an A, right? And what the P3 is, P3, in the expression we are having B minus C, right? B minus C. So this pointer leaf of B. Again, B is an identifier, right? So ID comma entry B. And P4, leaf of ID comma entry C. And what the P5 is B minus C. That means here I am constructing a node. I'm constructing a node. So I am using a semantic action, make node of or new node of minus E1 dot node comma T1 dot node. This E1 dot node was stored within pointer, some pointer with a sequence number, and T dot node is stored with some pointer with a sequence number. That means minus what P3 is B, what P4 is C. What the meaning of this P5 pointer P5 is P3 minus P4, that is B minus C, right? So here we get an expression B minus C. We get a sub expression B minus C, right? And now P6 is equal to, and this P5 is should be multiple with an P1 because P1 is an A. That is A into B minus C. A into B minus C. And P6 is equal to, here again I am using a node function, star comma P1. What the P1 is? P1 is an A. And what the P5 is already consisting of the entries with B minus C. So that means A into B minus C, right? See here, A into B minus C. Is it clear now? And what P7 is? P7 is A plus A into, right? A plus A into B minus C. Already this A into B minus C was stored in a pointer number P6. Was stored in a pointer number P6. Now I'm writing for the P7, where here the P7, here I'm using a node function plus A into, right? Plus what the A here is? A is with an P1. So P1 comma what the P6 is? P6 consisting of A into B minus C. So the left hand side of the expression, the left hand side of the expression was completed, and totally it was stored in a pointer P7. And when I take the value of the P7, my P7 consisting of A plus what P6? A into what P5? B minus C. Is it clear now? B minus C. That means half the left hand side of the expression was completed. Now I need to concentrate on right hand side part, because this plus is a root node. Plus is acting as a root node between two parts, the left hand side part and the right hand side part. And up to now I completed the operation sequence operations for the sequence of operations for left hand side, and now I'm writing for the right hand side. And P8 is equal to, again I'm using this B minus C. Again I need to write the function for B minus C. That means ID comma this B minus C, right? That is first initially I need to enter for the B, that is already in an P3. That is already in an P3. And again, so writing which existing pointer it is. Already it is an existing pointer. So I am taking P3 here. And I am not following, that means I am eliminating the duplicates here. I am eliminating the duplicates. Why? Because I am eliminating the duplicates means here I am creating the syntax directed definition for the DAGs, right? Not for the syntax tree, for the DAGs. If I am creating for the syntax tree, then I will not use these existing arrays, existing pointer numbers, right? That is for P2 again I will repeat the P2, again I will repeat and P8, again I will repeat and P9. In the place of P8 I didn't use an P3 because it was already an existing. To eliminate the duplicates, to eliminate the duplicate sub expressions, that is to eliminate the common sub expressions, we are using the existing, already existed pointer numbers here. This P8 was already an existing pointer, but I named with an P3, and P9, the entry with an C, this was also an existing in P4. That's why I'm using P4 here. And P10 means B minus C. This one also an existing pointer at P5. So I'm using P5. Right? Is it clear now? And what P11 is? P11 is now at the right hand side part, B minus C is completed. B minus C is completed. And what it remains? Star D is remains. This B minus C is already stored in P5. Right. So now I am writing for the D. Leaf. D is again an identifier, right? Leaf. leaf of id, comma, entry D. And this D should be multiple with an B minus C. This B minus C was already stored in a pointer P5, right? And this is an P11 and this is an P5. P12 is equal to node of star comma P5 consisting of B minus C, and it is an P11, P11 consisting of ND. That means B minus C into D. And finally, the two parts are completed. The left hand side part and the right hand side parts are completed in the given expression. Now, I need to combine these two parts with an operator plus. Combining these two parts with an operator plus. And this overall left hand side part was stored in an pointer number P7. P7. And the right hand side, overall right hand side part was stored in an pointer number P12, right? So now what the P13? P13 is node of plus comma P7 comma P12. P7 means this one and P12 means this one, right? Is it clear now? How to write an sequence of operations for the syntax tree. For the syntax tree. And here we are directly writing for the DAG, right? Sequence of operations for the DAG. That means from the given grammar for the productions, each and every production is associated with a semantic action based on the functions of the syntax tree. And based on the functions of the semantic syntax tree, we write all the semantic rules for the corresponding production rules. And now in the example, by using the pointers P1 to P13, what I compute here means only the sequence of operations, for the DAG. By using this sequence of operations, I can clearly represent an DAG. That means before the DAG, we need to represent an syntax. But here directly we are learning an DAG. For creating the DAGs, we are using the syntax directed definitions, and then I explained you how to write the sequence of operations for the DAG. And the next thing is to represent an structure. That structure is nothing but an DAG structure. That means here we're having a loops. This is nothing but an DAG representation. This is the DAG for the given expression A plus A into B minus C plus B minus C into D. If the question is draw the syntax tree for the expression, then you need to only draw the syntax tree, not an DAG, right? If the question is draw the DAG for the expression, so you need to draw the DAGs like this. What it means is, from the given expression, first you need to write down like this. First you need to write down the productions and the semantic actions, and then the sequence of operations for the DAG, and then the tree structure, then the tree representation, DAG representation. Is it clear now? 3 steps. 1, writing and semantic actions. 2, writing and sequence of operations, and third one is constructing a DAG. Is it clear? And this is the concept of variant of syntax trees. What variants of syntax trees means? Knowing about what the syntax tree or what an abstract syntax tree is, and knowing how to represent a syntax tree, and if you're having a question in the form of an expression, how to take that expression and how to construct the syntax trees for that expression, and then knowing about the DAG, what the definition of the DAG is, and the comparison between the syntax tree and the DAG, and then representation of the DAGs from the given expression, and how to compute the DAGs from the given expression with syntax directed definition. And here we're having an answer for this. If you're having an expression like this, construct and DAG is in question. How to construct and DAG for this expression means, first initially you need to write a sequence of operations for the DAG. Right? And you should also show with the syntax directed definition means you need to write the semantic actions for each and every production. Otherwise, no need to write this. No need to write the semantic rules for the productions. If the question is only to construct and DAG for the given expression, And note down that expression, and then for that expression, first initially you need to write the sequence of operations like this, and after writing the sequence of operations, then finally you need to construct and DAG like this, right? And this is the way of answering to the question after knowing what the syntax tree and what the DAG. With the difference of the syntax tree and the DAG, it is, I think it is clear to you all that main two representations. After knowing the difference between the parse tree and the syntax tree, then in this class I explained you the difference between the syntax tree and the DAG. And this is the most important concept, where it is the second concept under the intermediate code generation. Three address code representations. In a three address code, what is a three address code representations? And as I already explained you in before slides, the starting of the concept of intermediate code generation, here we are using an form to represent an source language. What that form is, that the form that we are using for the typical compilers to make it easy for generating the intermediate code generators, and that we are calling it as an intermediate language, right? And what an intermediate language is, in which representation we are writing that language. Here we are having such type of questions. For answering to that to such type of questions, here we are having an answer with a concept of learning a three address code. What is a three address code? How to represent an intermediate language with a three address code? Why we are using this T1, T2, T3, T4, T5? What the names of those, right? And here we are having the answers for all those questions just by learning with an concept of three address code. It can be clear to you all why to learn this three address code, and what is the representation of this three address code, and why it is useful in an intermediate language. And in this class, I will only explain the definition of three address code and the forms of the three address code. In the next class, I will briefly, I will give an in detail explanation of the types of, or we can also call it as in data structures of the three address code. First, initially, you need to know what an three address code is. What is three address code? The name itself, it is there. What is an three address code? The name itself, it is there. Three address code means at most the line, the code or the language, the statement should consisting of at most one operator and two operands. At most one operator and two operands. What it means? And at the right hand side of the production rule, my statement should consisting of at most two operands and one operator. Why? Because to compute an operation, I need two operands. To compute the operation, I need two operands. One, see the example, and it can be very easy to you all to understand this. That means B minus C. If I compute this B minus C, then I will get a value, right? That value is obtained to an T1. So what it means, at the right hand side, at one operator and two operands. We can call it as an three address code representation. That means one for storing the result, It should be in an temporary representation, right? It should be in a temporary representation, and two operands should need for performing the computation based on the operator, and the resultant is associated or is assigned to an temporary variable, right? Is it clear? See, in every line or in every statement, the representation is in a three address code representation. That means here we are having a format like x is equal to y of z, x is equal to y of z, y op of z. What it means? The computation of y of z, the computation of y of z is the whatever the value that can be obtained there, that is assigned to an resultant variable x. That is assigned to an resultant variable x. That means x is used for storing the result, and y and z are used for computing the to use it for making the computation based on the operation, based on the operators, right? Is it clear now what the three address code format is? And here we are having some forms of three address instructions. What those forms means, we need to use only these forms for writing the statements. For writing the statements in an intermediate language, we need to follow only these forms. That means if we are having an expression, for an expression, it may be an infix or postfix, whatever it may be. Initially, we are having an expression. For such type of an expressions, we need to use these forms. That is x is equal to y of z, x is equal to of y, x is equal to y. Right? Or for example, we are having an conditional statement. We are having a conditional statement in our programming language constructs. So we need to use these forms. Go to L, L is nothing but a label. If x, it is a conditional statement, if else, if x go to L and if false, x go to L, if x rel of y go to L. These are the conditional statements. We are using these forms for the conditional statements. We are using the first three for the expressions. It may be an infix expression or postfix or prefix, whatever it may be. For an expression, we are using these three. For an conditional statement, we are using these three. And for procedure calls, we are using the forms like paramex, call p comma n, y is equal to call p comma n. These are the ways of representing, forms of representing in three address instructions. Then we are writing an intermediate language. That means when we are generating an intermediate language, we need to follow these instructions. And these are the representations of the three address code. If the input is in the form of an expression, if the input is in the form of a conditional statements, or if the input is in the form of any procedure calls, or the input is in the form of an array, or if the input is in the form of an pointer, right? The last but one is an array. For the arrays, we are using the intermediate instructions like this. That means x is equal to y of phi, array representations, and x of phi is equal to y, and x is equal to ampersand y, and x is equal to star y, and star y is equal to y. These are for the pointers. This is the form of representing the intermediate three address code instructions for the pointers. This is for the array representation. Make a note of this. These are useful when we are generating the intermediate languages for any type of an input. For any type of an input, where my program language constructs consisting of an if-else conditions or any type of an conditional statement, I need to use the if go to L, if x go to L, and if false, x go to L, like that. And there is any relational operations between the uh, program, that means between the lines of the code. Then I need to use if x rel of y go to L, like that. If my program consisting of any procedural calls, then I need to use param x call p comma n, y is equal to call p comma n, like that. If my programming consists is an array program, or I am using an arrays in my program, in my language, then I need to use like the last but one format. And pointers, for the pointers, for addressing nodes, I need to use these. X is equal to ampersand y, and x is equal to star y, and star x is equal. These are the ways of representing the tree address codes, right? That means after implementing the intermediate code generation, my output should look like an intermediate language, because everything should be in a temporary storage. Everything should be in the lines of the statements in my code should be in a temporary storage. My temporary storage values, that means T1 to Tn, are storing the resultants of the computations that are performed in a program. So I need to know what the three address code representation is. I need to know what are the forms of representing the three address instructions. After knowing these, then I will implement the three address code, implementation of the three address code. And to implement a three address code, where we need to know three types of data structures. These are the three data structures that I will explain in the next class what these three data structures are. And these three data structures, the implementation of the three address code can be performed. And before that, I'm having an example here. And once all of you see the example, the line of the code in a program, do I is equal to I plus 1 while a of I is less than b. Here I'm having two ways of representation, one with an symbolic labels and two with an position numbers, because along with an symbolic label, I am using the position numbers here. That means 100, 101, 102, 103, 104, right? And this is symbolic label. This is a symbolic label. And for the uh, languages, for the lines of code in the language, I will prefer the position numbers. I will prefer the position numbers because with the position numbers, I will call the functions. With the position numbers, I will call the functions. Here is a label, L is a label. See, initially this I plus 1, where it is in 3 address code format, the computation of this should be stored in a temporary. That's why I'm assigning T1 is equal to I plus 1. And where the resultant is I is equal to I plus 1. So whatever the resultant that was stored in a T1, that is assigned to an I. So I is equal to T1, right? And here this line is completed. This line is completed. Now go to the array representation, A of I. In the, if we are having such representations, T2 is equal to I is multiple with 8 times. So because it is an array, so I into 8. Wherever you are having an line of code like this, in the place of this we need to use I into 8, right? And T2 is equal to I into 8, and this is A of I, where T3 is equal to A of T2, because T2 is an I into 8, right? A of T2. And here we're having a condition that this one already stored in a temporary T3, right? This T3 is less than B. Now go to label. Go to label statement. That is T1 is equal to I plus 1. And this is a symbolic label representation. If you are having an position numbers like this, just a single difference, instead of using this L, just we can define with an position number. We can write with an position number. That means the 100 statement is in T1 is equal to I plus 1. What it means is go to 100. That means again you need to form the cycle until the condition satisfies, right? This is the way of representing a 3 address code with a temporary storages T1 to Tn in with representing in the form of symbolic labels along with the position numbers. Is it clear, all of you? And in the next class, I will explain in detail about the data structures, how to represent the data structures. That means the implementation of the 3 address code with the 3 data structures with an example. And I will explain with an example how to write the temporaries, for the given expressions.